Welcome.
I'm Erin Riley.
I'm Kat Davis, and this is Surviving Service, a podcast about how we survive and navigate all the different service-oriented industries that we work in, from public service to civil service to volunteer service, and rekindle our flame so that we don't get burnt out or that we can better manage burnout. Really asking the question, who does it serve for the people who are most passionate about making the world a better place are the ones who end up getting burned out and, leaving their jobs. That's not relevant at all right now. Yeah, to get started, I thought we could talk a little bit about what we envision for this space, what we're hoping this podcast and what I really think can become a network or a community of supportive people who are in the business of making the world a better place. Like what you and I are what are we trying to do here? So, Erin, what is your dream? What brought you to wanting to pursue this space together, to cultivate this space?
Because I've always wanted to have my own podcast.
Yeah, because I love talking about things into microphones.
Yes, exactly. And and I think there's something cathartic of also being able to talk about how hard service is. And listen, I've been burnt out for 10 years now.
Mm-hmm.
And
professionally burned out.
Yes, I'm professionally burnt out. And I certainly am not the expert of how to help prevent that. But I think I know some ways. And I think talking about it might be good for us.
I do too. I think that's what really got me excited about this, is because we have been working together now for a couple of years. Oh my gosh, 6 years, 7 years. Yeah. So we've been on parallel paths and working together for about 6 years. And I too feel like I'm professionally burned out, working in different public service spaces in totally unsustainable ways. And I find that it's really, like you said, cathartic to commiserate with other people and hear about their stories. Know that you're not like alone experiencing all of these different ridiculous barriers and frustrations and tensions, and just being totally stretched thin and not provided the resources, being a, office of one trying to completely change a system in a world, all of those different things that we experience when we're in any kind of like service oriented position, often being underpaid and undervalued, which is super fun, while also trying to like survive and use your passion as a renewable resource, which it's just, I don't want to say it's not, but it can definitely drain your cup to way below empty when you start running on the passion fumes, and that's all that's driving you anymore. I find that I get my spark back when I get to like just talk with people about it and hear their stories and laugh about it. I think one of the best things about being in a service oriented job is that you develop like the best dark sense of humor. Just being able to laugh like, haha, literally the world is burning around us. And like, we just have to keep showing up and keep, like you've said before, like keep showing up for our volunteers and bringing them to the courthouse, or the state house, even if there's like literally people outside setting things on fire, and just being like, okay, this is okay here. We're fine. Everything's fine.
Right.
Or like watching as things just get dismantled around you. And at a certain point, you just have to laugh about it. So that's one of my favorite things. Trying
to encourage people while things are actively crumbling. And you're like, it's so fine.
It's so fine. Yeah, your voice matters. I know. But also, yeah. And I think it's interesting. Yeah. So I'm coming to this work from a background in pretty much every kind of public agency. I've worked in higher education and K through 12 education, local government, city government, county government, small nonprofits, all kind of with a theme around sustainability, environmental sustainability, climate action. And so in those spaces, it's like, oh yeah, the world is literally burning around us, as we're trying to get people to recycle or whatever. And just trying to like manage those feelings of frustration and anxiety of the people that we're serving. It's kind of an interesting place to be. Do
you want to hear about me?
I want to hear about you, Erin. Tell me about you.
How did I get here?
How did you get here?
So that's funny because, you have a theme. Mine's a little bit more random, right?
No, I love
that. I guess I would say that I started out in the military.
The ultimate service.
Yes, exactly. I started out in the military. Ultimately, they professionally asked me to leave. Oh no, how do I say that? They formally asked me to leave. There was a whole thing. We all dressed up.
Oh my
We all
gosh.
dressed up and they were like, you gotta go. But first, let's take half your pay.
Oh my gosh.
Then I went into school where I started another government job. I worked for the USGS before basically going into a science center as a work study job.
Oh, work study.
Explaining the cool aspects, the cool facts of marine mammals that then transitioned into 2 summers as a park ranger at the Grand Canyon to now, coming back home and 10 years of random nonprofits that first started out with like the environment, because I do have a fisheries and wildlife background and I do care about the environment, that led me to advocacy randomly.
Well, once you tell people you can manage volunteer, then they're like, oh.
But even like when I started my advocacy, it wasn't volunteers, it was managing paid caregivers in a Medicaid program for 4 years. And then worked to a little over 2 years now in a volunteer advocacy organization that I have now today said goodbye.
Goodbye.
Not so formal.
Not so formal. There wasn't a dress up and a party for this one? Like, yeah.
No.
A ceremony?
No.
You just mentioned so many different spaces that you've worked in, but the themes of that we'll be talking about around burnout and like just feeling overstretched and trying to manage yourself while you're trying to manage so many other people and feelings within these huge systems.
And on top of that, we both manage chronic illnesses.
Oh my gosh, that's the other. That's not only managing your human self, your health, your family, when your life has a rug pulled out from underneath you, which it always does. I am like the queen of losing my rugs. Everyone's always like, a lot of stuff just happens to you. And I'm like, you know what? That's how we become resilient, I guess. But then also managing when you're in a job where like literally there's always something on fire, there's always a crisis, the rug's always pulled out from underneath you there. And you don't have the support or the capacity or the redundancy in your position to be able to take the time off to manage your human self. So it's like, how are you expected to leave your human self at the door when you're at work? And then also because your work is so predicated on you being passionate and caring and building relationships with humans, the ability to leave your work self at your home door is also really, 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 really hard. Like the anxiety of the work self just sticks with you. And for me, at least, it like buzzes in my body. I didn't sleep the other night until like 4 a.m. because I was so anxious, which I have a lot of medication that's supposed to prevent that from happening. So I'm going to have to talk to some people about this. But like, I could just feel it like buzzing in my chest and in my mind. And so I ended up just like watching terrible shows until I finally was able to get some sleep. But that's because I was holding with me the stress of like knowing that I have some really challenging months ahead of me where I don't know how I'm going to manage the capacity in my position. And I don't know I'm going to manage the expectations of the people that I've built relationships with. And it sticks with you. And that's all job related stress that my friends in the private sector don't fully understand. They're like, just whatever. It's just an organization. You don't owe them anything. And I'm like, it's not the organization. It's the people and the relationships that are required and change making. And you can't just leave that. It's really, really hard to just leave that at the door. And that's how I learned actually that I have chronic illness, is because the stress became so much that my symptoms started showing up and I got an MRI. And then I was like, oh, interesting. This stress and these issues are not just normal human things people go through. They're actually like specific things that are diagnosable. Hopefully we can prevent them from getting worse. We can manage them a little bit, which is great. But realizing that, oh, dang, I'm in a career that it's funny because the illness I'm managing, it's funny. Haha. It's funny because the illness I'm managing, the symptoms become exacerbated and you can go into relapse as a result of stress. So I was like, oh, well, I should probably get this under control.
I mean, I've always had mine. I guess you could say you, but
no, mine develops over time.
I guess like funny, haha.
Funny, haha.
For me, funny, Well, for me is right after I left the Navy, I didn't have insurance for a good 6 years.
Oh my gosh, what? So you were managing everything that you are managing now with insurance, but without insurance.
I was raw dogging it.
You're raw dogging it, as the kids say these days.
I was like living life with no management. Like,
were you aware of the things that you're struggling with at that time?
Oh, yeah. Yes. And I guess I shouldn't say I was raw dogging it. No, I was definitely, my coping skills actually were substance and alcohol abuse. So, no big deal. Yeah. So I didn't have sustainable, I did not have regular health care for a good amount of time. And it only happened to be in the last 6 years, 7 years that we have found out for surezies, like what's up, what's happening, what's going on.
Which is kind of magical to get to like actually have some validation and explanation for your lived experience, I think.
Yes. It also was incredible. It's still sometimes incredibly painful. It was also very painful.
Oh, yeah.
And I would be interested in seeing what the statistic is of people who have had similar experiences and some similar like conditions, what the percentage is of them going into work that serves question. Other people.
Oh my gosh, that's so interesting. Now I'm curious about that.
I want to say it's high.
Yeah.
I want to say I actually I haven't heard what it was, but I feel like I have heard it's pretty high, but that's not a scientific thing that I have looked into.
Oh yeah, we're not experts, but we have vibes and we have anecdotes. And I feel like that in itself is like a form of data. No, that's interesting you say that. And when I say magical, I think just to expand on that, it was helpful for me to hear that I've been living life on hard mode.
Yes.
Because I was feeling very self-defeated that, part of other aspects of things that we're trying to manage with mental health is around like perfectionism. And so this feeling of failing, I actually talked with my therapist about this morning, about how I need to get comfortable with failing, because I can't just sit here and like have stress eat at my body because I can't do things the way I know they should be done. And I need to be able to just communicate with like integrity and trust that people will respect where I'm coming from when I tell them that I can't do what I wanted to do, or I can't complete what I had set out to do. But I lost my track of thought. Something about...
That's okay.
Oh, yeah. So just realizing, because I was holding myself to this really high standard because I had this vision for like what I knew could be possible in my work, especially in like a sustainability and systems change job. You see this like vision of a future where things are working and you're like a dreamer in a system that is designed to like be unchanging. And it's just this huge amount of tension. Being able to tell that person, hey, it's not just you. The system itself is designed to be unchanging and frustrating, and it's designed to burn you out. It runs on urgency and scarcity and all of these things, but also you were also managing life on hard mode. Like, so it's not only were you like going up against the normal barriers of frustrating bureaucracy, but also you were like dealing with chronic fatigue and a whole slew of other issues. And so I don't know. I just want to go back to that person like me yesterday and give her a little hug and be like, it's okay. You're set up to fail. And you're doing pretty good for somebody who was set up to fail.
Yeah. You're succeeding.
You are doing amazing change. It's work. It is happening. It's just not at the pace or the scale that you know is possible. And it's not happening because humans are silly.
You touch on a good point of the meeting I had yesterday where I basically said, hey, I have an accommodation because my brain does not work like it works a lot differently. And so support does look different. And the unfortunate part is that I think there is really good intentions by people, by organizations, but it's really hard to be the test person.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
That there and this is now 2 organizations that I feel like I'm the test person of like
the guinea pig for their ADA policy.
Yeah, you're really making change at a really high cost to my physical and mental health, right? So, but here's the thing. What sparks, right? Like what gets me out of bed? What got me out of bed today was the knowledge that I was going to quit, which by the
That's
way, dear
empowering, though.
listener. Yeah, by the way, dear listener, not everybody can do that.
Yeah.
And within this last year, I have been fortunate to come into different circumstances that have afforded me to be able to say bye-bye. I don't have a backup. But I also can't sit here anymore. And what you said is these organizations are dysfunctional and they run on scarcity. And I have decided that I shall take myself out because that's not the world that I live in, nor do I want to live in. There is a lot of abundance, and I believe with a good amount of rest, I can find it. I think if I had a hope for people who might listen to this, is there have been many a time I have felt overwhelmed and been like, I'm stuck. I do not make enough money. I am a single person. But I don't know where I can go. This is the only thing that I can do at that time. And my hope is that this is a community and a space that can share, like, that is a totally valid and totally natural thought in the place that you're in right now. But there's a community and there are people out there who you can tap into, who are going to tell you, like, it's not true, you badass.
You badass.
You can, it's going to feel like that for a second, but I'd like to give you a hand, or someone's going to give you a hand, right? And help you.
I think that also can be so true because in these types of roles, you end up playing really weird niche unicorn positions. So I'm, for instance, working in climate change policy in a K through 12 organization. This is a unicorn position. This doesn't exist in a ton of public education spaces, much less like the private sector. Like, and I know that's like true for a lot of like nonprofit spaces when you are holding so many hats and categories and stuff. So it can feel really like you're stuck. And I think that can be where having a community of people who can like highlight the amazing things that you have done and also help you translate your skills into other spaces can be like really empowering. And I think that's actually a great lead into how we got so connected and close.
Yes.
The Erin and Kat story in the story of the Garbage Gals. Yeah.
We met at a little thing called Tree Fort Music Fest. We met on a little team that's not little. It's one of the biggest teams.
It's grown too.
Yes. It's called the Green Team. So we are garbage goblins. We are garbage gals. What did I say? Trash trolls. That's
dumpster divas.
Troll. Yeah. Little raccoons. But basically just trying to keep the festival grounds clean. And I myself, this will be my 10th year coming up.
Amazing.
And I have, I started out as a lead volunteer and now I am a co-director with what we called the other day with a big D.
A big D director.
Yeah.
We're
that. Big D directors.
For our big D dumpsters.
Yep.
Our new, we just ordered, right?
Yes.
Coveralls.
Coveralls.
Big D energy on the back of them with like a dumpster. Is that
Write that down?
Is that what we need on these coveralls?
Write that down.
Right.
Yes, and it should be the flaming dumpster.
The flaming dumpster
that I cross-stitched for you.
Yes, I still have that on my wall. But this thing called Tree Fort is a really amazing space, and it holds something that I think you and I both use for our sparks to get us out of bed, which is connection with community, connection with creativity and possibility, and this magic of what's possible when you bring community together. And I get excited talking about it because Tree Fort has magic to it. We're such nerds and we love it so much. I've been working with Tree Fort since 2018, and we found the space that's like, what do you want to do? Let's do it. It's very cool.
Right. Having the leadership be like, yeah, we see your big D energy and we will let you do this. We want you to do the things that you want to do.
Yes. I was describing it the other day as recognizing that for those of us who've worked in nonprofits and big public organizations and these huge dysfunctional bureaucratic spaces, Treefort is a space of yes. And it's amazing to get to be like, we want to do something cool. And they're like, awesome. We support you. That sounds great. That sounds like a great benefit for our community. And for those of you who are like, I've never heard of this Treefort thing, what is it? It's a 5-day music festival that takes over all of downtown Boise, Idaho. And it uses every possible nook and cranny as a venue for music and art and theater and drag and comedy and film and
podcast.
There's a pod fort, or there's a food fort.
Yoga.
There's a yoga fort. There's a drag fort. There's a
Ale fort.
Ale fort's very popular.
Oh, hack fort.
Hack fort. Yes. There's a fort. There's a fort for everything.
Story fort? Did you say story fort?
I haven't said story fort yet. There's a story fort, and their whole motto is that Treefort is for everyone, which is just all the warm and fuzzies. And it's true. It's got a huge volunteer power, like hundreds of volunteers. The green team alone manages like 150.
Something like that, which might be growing a little bit this year.
Just a little bit. Yeah.
Even though we're going down from 5 to 4 days, it's still growing.
It's going to be growing. We're just everywhere. And some of the cool things that we've gotten to do at Treefort are things like implementing a steel cup program. So now it's a totally plastic-free main stage. We were piloting all sorts of really cool reusable things and compostable things. We've piloted wash stations for reusable food fort where really they're just like, yeah, give it a go. And so we're trying to figure out how to make this thing that is such a benefit for the Boise community and for the Northwest. I'm just going to say it, for the Northwest in general, because we're going to lump Boise in with the Northwest. I don't care who has a problem with it. It deserves to get to hang out with its older sisters, Portland and Seattle.
Yeah.
But yeah, how can we make this thing as low impact on the environment as possible and high impact on all the good that can happen?
And that's how we met. So that's 6 years ago. 7, coming up on 7.
Coming up on 7. Yeah. 2025 will be my number 7. Wild.
We didn't really start talking until we saw each other in a comedy club.
Across the room, there she was.
There you were.
The amazing Ari Riley, performing on stage while I was waiting tables to pay for health insurance for the nonprofit job I was working at as a high-level marketing and volunteer coordinator. So I did volunteer management for a small nonprofit, as well as all of the marketing, advertising, relations, putting together the baskets for our auctions, putting together the huge gala event where we did all of our fundraising. I had 2 full-time jobs. Still one of my favorite places. I still love the people who ran it, but just in terms of that whole just getting into the whole thing, making $14 an hour without health insurance. There I was waiting tables on my weekends. But yeah, we got to see how both our side hustles and our side sparks are things that gave us some joy and some, at the time, would put myself in any position to make money while seeing live performances, because I just couldn't afford to go to them. So I would go to I worked at the comedy club, and then that's also why I got into Treefort, is because I got a little tiny baby stipend. I couldn't just do things for funsies. I was I want to go to this thing, and this guy's making this offer to me, and I couldn't afford to go on my own. Yeah.
Should we talk about that? Because the only reason why I went to Treefort and was a volunteer was because I was poor.
Yeah.
Because I was working 3 jobs at one nonprofit.
Yeah.
And I really wanted to go, and I could not afford a ticket. And so I'm like, oh, I'll just volunteer. And so that's how it started. And that's why I was volunteering. And yeah, when I was doing comedy, luckily I wasn't serving anything but laughs.
Oh, not that the comedy culture doesn't have its own challenge.
Yeah. Yeah. But it's also kind of like, oh my gosh, because I was a comic, because I was doing things at that point and I was bringing business for these like little shows in this competition I was in or whatnot, then I got to the club for free.
Oh, that's
and was
so
able
great.
to go every weekend and just watch. Even if I did not like the comic, I still got to watch.
That was the challenging thing about serving tables in that place, is that if you didn't like the comic and they were performing for 4 nights in a row, 2 sets a night, you just heard it over and over again. Sorry. Yeah. That's kind of funny. I love this idea too of abundance, of like how to use your lack of resources in your service job to also get into amazing kind of like other spaces that are spark orienting. Like when I worked at the university, I coordinated volunteers for our arena to redo or rescuing recyclables so that we could watch all the big shows that came to our arena, like Elton John and like 21 Pilots and Ghost and stuff like that. So I just offered like, hey, I'm going to coordinate service learning volunteers. Can we come in and make sure your recycling is clean? And then I got to help these, 10 to 15 students at a time watch these really cool shows that they on their campus that they could not afford to go to.
Right.
Or in that I, as a staff on that campus, couldn't afford to go to. So Jimmy Buffett was the weirdest one. I didn't know there was a whole culture. I didn't know there was a whole thing with like parrots on. I didn't know like people, the amount of parrots, the amount of Hawaiian shirts. Yeah. The amount of just intoxicated older folks screaming at me about how grateful they were that I was there recycling. It was wonderful. It was a great experience.
That is the nice thing about Tree Fort too, is that when people do notice you changing bags or hauling garbage, they are so appreciative.
And the amount of people that like they see. So part of our role is to hang out after the band ends, for the night, everything closes down, and pick up the trash on the ground, that there's inevitably stuff on the ground. Way less stuff once we moved away from plastic cups. It used to just be like a foot, like ankle deep in plastic cups in front of the main stage that we'd have to pick up every night. But people hang out and they linger and they help pick up, and it's really sweet. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they don't. Sometimes they just drink and linger, but sometimes they help, and it's really, I don't know. Anytime a random concert goer helps, I just get a little heart. Little heart.
It's nice.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, let's see. We talked about how hard it was and how hard service is, but then we remembered that our spark also started from service,
from literally volunteer service, which is a whole nother kind of service.
Yeah.
In coordinating volunteers. And I think that's the thing, though, is that our spark and what keeps us going is that like community connection.
Yes.
I always kind of laugh that I don't have the energy or capacity outside of my job to actually go serve in any kind of helpful function. I have mad respect for the people who do like jobs, their full-time jobs, and then also go serve on the board of other nonprofits. And I'm like, I don't know how you do it.
I've tried and I've failed.
I too overpromised and underdelivered in a few like volunteer board roles before. I was like, I literally can't. It's too adjacent to work. And again, I love my job. This is the thing that service people always say. I love my job. It's just like really, it's taxing.
I do not love my job right now.
Girl, you don't got a job anymore.
I love my big D job. Yeah. I do not love I don't love my job. I'm going to say it. I'm going to be transparent and say, I do not love my job. I do not love trying to rally people in really hard times. But that's also because I'm burnt the fuck out. And I just I know what you're saying.
No, situational context is so important though, because you're trying to rally people in one of the most unmovable legislative environments.
One of the I think we've got like one of the biggest super majorities. Don't quote me on that, but it feels like it. And it doesn't even feel, I mean, the issue being that it's also a super majority that's starting to lean very far right.
Yes.
So that's the scary part about it. Yeah. And then just being like, hello, could you maybe think of not cutting this program so that people can get their cancer treatment and not, die or leave their families in debt?
You're like trying to figure out what the value is that they're going to appeal to, which is like how you're supposed to do this dance is like, okay, maybe you don't actually care about people who are sick, but maybe you care about the impact this will have on the economy. And then you learn, no, they don't care about it.
That's exactly it. Yep.
Yep.
And that's where it's just like, oh man. So, so my job happens to be rallying volunteers, empowering them, being their cheerleader, on top of constantly pivoting to figure out how to have the volunteers have a productive conversation to sway on an issue. Because yes, we could lobby, and it's exhausting. And there was still more that was piled on, right? Like,
absolutely.
And let's be honest. I thought power to the people. I wanted to be such an advocate. I don't want to. It's too much. I don't want to right now.
Yeah, that's fair.
I don't want to get paid. I don't want to get paid for doing it. I will still always be an advocate, but the maneuverability right now.
Yeah.
I just want. I want to be as far away as possible, which is really sucks because this is a time when we really need to come together in community. And I think that's the thing that you're saying.
Yeah.
We get our spark from community.
Yes.
But it's really hard when you are clawing for community to come in.
Yeah.
Like, please, it's
when
for
everyone's
the
burned
good.
Out. Everyone needs to rest. Everyone's like, yo, we're exhausted. We're hurt. We're scared. Yeah. So dear listener, I cheated. So Erin's still in Boise, Idaho, trying to do work. I moved to Portland. So I'm doing work in a totally different environment.
Yeah.
It has its own challenges. I was in a position where I needed to be done doing what I was doing and looking for somewhere that was going to let me seek my potential, because I felt like I'd reached my potential in the space and I didn't see any other space I wanted to work in that area. And also, I'm just going to say it, Idaho is going in a very scary direction, and I wanted to not be there when that happened. So I don't think it's possible to talk about public service at this time without getting a little political, because we know that an incoming administration wants to cut all funds for public service and all funds for education. And it's just an impossible thing to ignore when you're in this position of trying to rally people, when you're trying to serve students, when you're trying to feed the community, whatever it is that you're trying to do, and you rely on federal grant money, and you know that that's all at risk. And it might, for those of us who have our lives pulled out from underneath us all the time with our health and our family and our living situations, we know that that is also unstable and it's scary. So there's a lot of uncertainty right now, and the idea of rallying people, bringing people into a cause and rallying the troops for a futile effort is not a good use of anyone's time. We need to be more thoughtful and collaborative and strategic and compassionate with each other. And I don't blame you for not wanting to get volunteers in front of a legislator that's going to spit in their face if they give them the time of day,
Yeah, we don't even know either. But I don't have to worry.
You don't have to worry about that anymore.
No, I don't. And I love my volunteers.
That's the thing.
I love working with my volunteers. I love the relationships that I built with my volunteers. And if that was just all I had to do, it would be a much different story.
Yeah. And that's hard because those relationships are the ones, I think, that make it really hard to leave.
Absolutely. But then my favorite volunteer was like, I'm not coming back. And I was like,
you're like,
okay,
this is a sign. That's all I needed.
That was the hardest one. That was the one volunteer that I was like, ooh, I can't step out. But then she was like, I got to keep my head down and I can't do extra volunteer work next year. And I was like, love you. I love you. I don't love the circumstance, but yeah. She's also in a service government job, right? And she also works with a vulnerable population. And we met each other because she was trying to find more resources, and we just clicked. And it was a great 2 years. But then she was also having some interpersonal issues with leadership. And unlike me, who was like, nope, she does not want to leave those who she serves. And I absolutely understand. And so
that's so hard
to do that. She was like, got to take a step back from volunteering. Sorry.
I hope that added capacity helps her a little bit.
Me too. Because she'd really like to go paddleboarding, and I'd like to go paddleboarding with her.
Well, now you can do that as a spark generating activity instead of a...
Exactly.
Yeah.
What are all the things, maybe next time we need to talk about what are all the things that we want we want to do.
The dreams of what we want to do. Yeah.
Or it's not that we can't, it's that
it's hard to manage.
We finite energy
source. Yes. I think that's what actually got me really excited about the idea of producing this podcast and cultivating this space, because in a time where I am personally, and I know a lot of people are feeling like personal agency is really, really hard to come by in your organization or your government. When you're feeling like there's not much we can do, this feels like a tangible project where I can create something and you can create something, and an excuse to connect with my Erin who lives so far away.
I know.
And for us to get to connect with others and actually create something meaningful and tangible. I'm feeling like that can be really hard to do. But you're lacking that agency in your bureaucratic space.
We want to empower you all. No.
Yeah, Mom, listening out there, I want to empower you. Well, I have big dreams. I want to create some platforms for people to connect on. I want to create, I'd love a Discord server. I'd love a space where people can send us stories and we can read them and all laugh together about how ridiculous the asks are that we get handed, or what people do to generate their spark.
You mean you just want to make a community, which I love.
I want to make a community. That's what it's all about.
And I just wanted to be in a podcast and also make a community and also be a subject matter expert on my life of service and how
you've been through the ringer.
Yeah, both of us have.
Yeah,
a lot of us have. But yeah, find yourself a group.
Yes.
Find yourself a group in a niche.
Yeah. A group of people who understand the nonsense. I'm so grateful to get to share the space with you.
Me too.
And I'm excited about this project, and I'm proud of us for showing up today. So
I'm proud of us too. I'm excited. We get to see how this turns out.
Yeah.
And then we get to adjust from there.
We get to be flexible and iterate like we do in our lives.
Yes.
I'm excited. Yay. Stoke.
Piece by piece.
Piece by piece. Surviving Service is independently created and produced by Kat Davis and Erin Riley. The views shared on Surviving Service do not reflect the official stance or beliefs of any employer, organization, or any other group that the speakers may be associated with. Join the community and spark new connections by following us on Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky at surviving_service, and reach out to share your own stories of service-driven work, all the things that make us laugh and cry, all the tips, tools, and tricks to get through by sending them to survivingservicepod@gmail.com. Together, we will go from surviving to thriving. Hang in there. We got this.